The galaxy was endless, full of countless stars, but for the Halari people, those stars felt cold and silent. Their world was small, covered in green forests and wide rivers, with cities built like art pieces rather than fortresses. The Halari were gentle by nature. They were healers, singers, and builders of beauty. Their history held no great wars, no weapons of mass destruction. For thousands of years, they believed peace was the natural way of life, but peace could not stop fire when it came from the sky. The Kharak Dominion arrived like a shadow spreading across the stars. They were a race that believed only in power and conquest. Their ships entered the Halari system without warning, dark and sharp like blades of metal drifting in the void. At first, the Halari thought it was only a passing fleet. They did not even understand the meaning of war on such a scale, but within hours their illusions were destroyed. The Kharak ships opened fire, burning entire cities before the Halari leaders could even send a message of peace. The Halari people had no fleets to defend them. Their ships were only for trade and exploration. They had no armies, only small security forces meant to stop crime. Against the Dominion, they were nothing. The skies above their capital turned red as explosions painted the clouds. Towers fell like sand sculptures crushed under a careless hand. Families ran through the streets, clutching their children, not knowing where to hide. The forests that had stood for centuries burned in a single night. The elders of the Halari gathered in secret chambers deep below the surface. Their voices trembled with fear. They had only one chance left, to send a message into the galaxy. It was a desperate call, one that carried both shame and hope. Shame because they knew they could not protect themselves. Hope because maybe, somewhere out there, someone stronger would listen. They activated ancient transmitters and spoke simple words into the void. "We are dying. We are the Halari. Please, someone save us. Our world is burning. We cannot fight. We only ask for help." The message repeated endlessly, traveling out into the endless darkness. The Halari did not know who would hear it. They only knew that if no one came, their kind would vanish. Mothers held their children close as the broadcast played. Fathers wept quietly, knowing they could not protect their families. The young tried to stay brave, but their eyes carried the same fear. The Dominion soldiers were already marching across the land, capturing survivors and enslaving entire villages. The Halari could only watch and hope. Days passed, then weeks. The Dominion fleet grew larger as reinforcements arrived. The Halari kept listening to the stars, praying for a reply, but the galaxy was cruel. Other species heard the signal, but they ignored it. The Kharak Dominion was too powerful, and no one wished to stand against them. The great empires looked away, choosing safety over mercy. The Halari's cries faded into the background of space, just another weak species marked for extinction. In the caves where survivors hid, children asked their parents, "Will anyone come?" And their parents, with heavy hearts, lied to them. Yes, someone will. But inside, even they no longer believed. The galaxy was vast, but it felt empty. And yet something unexpected happened. Far away, beyond the usual paths of trade and diplomacy, strange receivers picked up the signal. On a world most civilized species avoided, the words of the Halari reached ears unaccustomed to mercy. These beings were not known for kindness nor for peace. Their reputation in whispers was harsh, a race born on a death world, a place where nature itself tried to kill them every day. To most of the galaxy, they were spoken of as monsters, barely civilized, dangerous even as allies. They were humans. The Halari did not know this yet. They still sat in the ruins of their cities, clinging to fading hope. But somewhere across the stars, the message reached a people who understood suffering. A people who had been shaped by struggle, who had built their strength not in peace but in survival. The Dominion commander on Halari Prime laughed as he watched the fires spread. To him, the Halari were already finished. "No one will come for them," he told his officers. "No one is foolish enough to face us." But beyond his sight, something moved in the darkness. A reply was forming. The Halari would soon hear a voice that would change everything. It was not the voice of angels nor the promises of great empires. It was rough, strange, and heavy with strength. And it would say only one thing: "Message received, hold on. Help is coming." The Dominion had grown arrogant in its victory. Its warships spread across Halari skies, cutting through clouds of smoke with precision. The Halari hid in shadows, terrified to move, listening as the enemy ransacked what remained of their cities. Every hour brought more destruction. Every night brought more fear, and yet the mysterious voice that had answered their call echoed in the receivers, reminding them, "Help is coming." At first, the Halari could only imagine what kind of help it would be. Would it be another great empire, sleek and orderly with diplomacy first and war last, or a fleet of mercenaries only concerned with profit, caring nothing for lives but their own reward? The Halari did not know. They only knew that the voice felt real, steady and unafraid, a promise in the darkness. Then, on the horizon, the stars began to change. At first it was subtle, tiny flickers of light, unusual patterns among familiar constellations. The Dominion noticed too, reporting strange readings to the commander. But he laughed. "Pathetic," he said. "If anyone dares come, they will burn as easily as the Halari cities." His soldiers smirked, confident that nothing in the galaxy could challenge the Dominion's might, and then they came into view. At first the ships were small, few in number. They moved differently from the great fleets of the galaxy. They were not elegant or perfectly designed. Their hulls were scarred and dented, as if they had survived countless battles on harsh worlds. Energy pulses were uneven, engines loud, and the weapons, though massive, seemed crude compared to the Dominion's smooth plasma cannons. Yet the presence of these ships carried something more powerful than technology. It carried certainty. The Halari stared in awe from their hiding places. Are they coming for us?" whispered a child, wide-eyed. His mother held him tighter, unsure what to say. For the first time in weeks, hope shone in their hearts. They dared to believe. The Dominion commander's face darkened as he observed the new fleet. "Fools," he hissed. "They are nothing. Send the fire." But as his ships moved to intercept, a shockwave of destruction hit them first. Human weapons roared through the void. Dominion vessels twisted in the light, some disintegrating instantly, others blown apart by devastating blasts. The humans did not hesitate. They fought with a strange, terrifying courage. They did not hide, did not retreat, did not beg for mercy. They simply advanced. The Halari could only watch, hearts racing. They had never seen battle like this. The Dominion fleet, once unstoppable, faltered. Ships were destroyed, formations broken, and yet the humans pressed forward, unyielding. Then, landing pods streaked through the atmosphere. Soldiers came, their armor heavy and scarred, their weapons unlike anything the Halari had ever imagined. They moved with speed, precision, and power. When the Dominion tried to fight them on the ground, the humans advanced through fire and smoke, shrugging off explosions that would have killed any ordinary being. The earth trembled with each step they took. One Halari elder, hiding among the ruins, whispered a prayer to the stars. "Protect us, whoever you are." And as if answering, the humans charged into battle. Every enemy they faced fell back or fled. Every village they entered they protected, shielding the Halari from harm. Where Dominion soldiers terrorized, humans fought. Where Halari were cornered, humans threw themselves into danger without hesitation. The Halari could not understand it. How could a species survive a world where nature itself tried to kill them, and yet come to the aid of others so far from home? How could they fight like storm and fire and still protect strangers? The answer became clear as they observed the humans up close. This was who they were. Forged in suffering, shaped by endless danger, and yet capable of mercy and courage beyond imagining. And still, there was more. Among the humans, one soldier paused to help a frightened Halari child from the rubble. He did not scold, did not push away. He lifted the child gently, speaking words the Halari could not understand, but the tone carried warmth and reassurance. A healer helped another Halari trapped beneath debris. They were not only warriors, they were saviors, protectors, and a force that the Halari could finally believe in. The Dominion commander roared in anger, furious that his empire was being challenged by beings he had dismissed as monsters. "Kill them all!" he bellowed. But even as he gave orders, he noticed something terrifying. The humans did not fear. They did not flee. Every loss was answered by another strike, faster, stronger, and more relentless. Their fury was not blind hatred. It was a determination that no galaxy could ignore. In hidden caves and ruined streets, the Halari whispered among themselves. "They are different," said one. "They are not like the others. They do not fear death, and yet they fight for life. For us." Tears rolled down faces worn from sorrow, but hope bloomed anew. For the first time in their history, the Halari realized that someone had truly heard their cries. As the humans pushed the Dominion back, the skies cleared, and the Halari began to emerge from hiding. Their world was battered, their cities in ruins, but they were not defeated. For the first time, they understood that survival was no longer impossible, and somewhere deep in their hearts, they knew that the humans, these Deathworlders, would not leave until their world was safe. The stars above burned with the arrival of something the Halari had never imagined. A force strong, strange, and unstoppable had come to stand with them. And as the first contact unfolded, one thought echoed through every Halari mind. We are not alone. And perhaps we never will be again. The battle over Halari skies raged with a fury the galaxy had not seen in generations. The Dominion's fleet, once confident and cruel, now faced humans unlike any enemies they had ever fought. The ships were smaller, fewer in number, but they moved with terrifying precision. Energy bolts tore through Dominion vessels, ripping them apart before they could strike. Smoke and fire twisted across the void, painting the stars red. On the surface, human soldiers advanced with relentless determination. Their armor was scarred, weapons roaring, boots pounding the ground like thunder. The Dominion's foot soldiers thought them weak, unprepared for organized defense, but the humans did not falter. They charged into traps, dodged explosions, and fought with an intensity born of a planet that had tried to kill them at every turn. To them, pain was temporary, fear was fuel, and defeat was not an option. The Halari watched from hidden caves, trembling at the scene above. They had never seen war like this. Explosions lit the forests and buildings crumbled, but humans pressed on, their presence a beacon of hope. Children clung to their parents, watching wide-eyed as creatures they had only dreamed of came to save them. Mothers whispered prayers not for themselves but for these strange warriors who carried death and mercy in equal measure. The Dominion commander screamed orders, fury twisting his face. Destroy them! Crush these fools! But every assault he commanded was repelled. Human tactics were brutal and unpredictable. Where the Dominion expected retreat, they found charge. Where the Dominion expected fear, they found rage tempered with discipline. Each victory was a message. No species, no empire could dominate without cost. Amid the chaos, small groups of humans moved like shadows through destroyed streets, protecting Halari who had been trapped or abandoned. One soldier, bleeding from a shoulder wound, lifted a child from debris and handed them to a trembling parent. Go, he said in rough, broken Halari. You're safe now. Run! The Halari stared at him in awe, unable to comprehend such courage. How could one being care so deeply for strangers while surrounded by so much death? In another village, humans formed a line to block Dominion soldiers from entering shelters where the Halari hid. Explosions shattered walls, fire raged through streets, and yet they stood firm. The Halari could hear their voices shouting commands, cries of pain, and words of encouragement to each other. Their teamwork, strength, and sheer will seemed almost impossible. Yet here they were, fighting not for territory or wealth, but for life itself. Some of the Halari began to recognize a strange pattern in human behavior. They did not fight for glory. They did not seek power. Every action was calculated to protect the helpless and punish the oppressors. And when a human fell, another took their place, never letting grief or loss stop them. It was a kind of courage the Halari had never witnessed. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Hours turned into days. The Dominion's forces dwindled, morale collapsing under the relentless human assault. Ships retreated, soldiers faltered, and the once unshakable commander realized, too late, that his empire had underestimated the Deathworlders. How can they survive this? He shouted, disbelief in his voice. They should be destroyed. Meanwhile, among the Halari, emotions surged like a storm. People wept openly, some from relief, some from the overwhelming sight of hope. Families who had given up emerged from hiding, helping to carry the wounded, bringing water and food to the humans who still fought. The bond between Halari and human was forming in the heat of battle, a connection forged not through words but through shared struggle and survival. At one moment, a group of human soldiers raised their weapons toward a collapsing Dominion walker that threatened a Halari school. With coordinated precision, they destroyed it before it could strike, saving dozens of children. A teacher pressed her hands together in prayer, tears streaming down her face. They are angels, she whispered, though she knew them to be something stronger, something human. By the third day, the Dominion was forced to retreat. Their fleets limped away, their soldiers demoralized and broken. Where once they had laughed at the helplessness of the Halari, now they were humbled by the unstoppable will of humans who had nothing to gain but the protection of strangers. The battle left the land scarred, and the sky heavy with smoke, but the Halari were alive. They emerged from their hiding places, running to the humans, hugging them, crying in disbelief. They touched the weapons, the armor, the burned and wounded bodies, trying to understand how being so dangerous could also be so compassionate. One Halari elder stepped forward, voice trembling as he addressed the leader of the humans. We did not know who would answer our call. We prayed for help, but you have shown us a power and a mercy that we never imagined. How can we ever repay you? The human commander, bloodied and exhausted, simply shook his head. No need, he said. You called, we answered. That's what we do. The Halari could only stare, their hearts full of gratitude, awe, and wonder. These humans, these Deathworlders, had arrived when no one else dared. They had fought through fire and death, not for glory, not for fame, but because they had chosen to. For the first time in generations, the Halari felt safe. The Dominion was gone, and their world, though battered, still stood. And in that moment, amid the ruins and smoke, the Halari realized something powerful. The galaxy had not seen humans yet. They had only glimpsed what it meant to survive, to protect, and to fight with a heart that could never be broken. The battle was over, but its memory would remain forever. The Halari would tell their children of the humans who came from the stars, the ones who survived death worlds and embraced mercy, the ones who had answered when no one else would. And as the stars burned above, one thought echoed through their minds. We are not alone. Humanity has arrived. The battle had ended, but its cost weighed heavily on everyone. Smoke still rose from ruined cities, and the scent of burned metal and scorched earth hung in the air. For the Halari, it was a moment of relief, but also a moment of sorrow. They emerged from hiding, blinking at the sun as if seeing it for the first time, and found their world scarred beyond recognition. The humans, however, were still moving through the ruins, checking, helping, and protecting the survivors. Everywhere the Halari looked, they saw the price of survival etched on human faces. Soldiers limped through debris, carrying heavy weapons and wounded comrades. Some were bandaged, some bleeding openly, but none complained. They worked tirelessly, saving those who were trapped, feeding those who were hungry, and comforting those who had lost everything. The Halari could not understand their endurance. They had called for help, but the help that came was not gentle. It was strong, dangerous, and costly, but it was also alive with care. In one village, a human soldier knelt beside a group of children who had been huddled under collapsed walls. His hands were shaking from exhaustion, yet he spoke softly, giving them words of comfort in their broken language. You're safe now, he said. No one will hurt you anymore. A small Halari girl looked at him with wide eyes and asked, Why do you help us? You don't even know us. The soldier's eyes softened, though his face was streaked with blood and dirt. Because someone has to, he replied simply. Someone has to stand when others can't. That's what we do. The Halari slowly began to understand the depth of the humans' commitment. They did not come for fame or wealth. They did not come for orders or politics. They came because they chose to. Every human who fell, every soldier wounded, every life risked was done in the name of protecting strangers. The Halari wept as they witnessed it, realizing that no words could fully capture the bravery and selflessness of these Deathworlders. Yet the cost was visible. Dozens of humans lay wounded, some too badly to move. The air was thick with the cries of pain and relief, and the Halari did what they could to help. They carried water, cleaned wounds, and offered food. But it was clear. These humans were built for survival, hardened in ways the Halari could never be. They endured wounds and exhaustion that would have broken anyone else. One of the human commanders gathered the Halari elders near a collapsed temple. He was tired, his armor scratched and scorched, but his voice carried authority and calm. Your people are alive. That is why we are here. You do not need to understand how we do it. You only need to know we will not leave until everyone is safe. The elders stared at him, their hearts full of gratitude and awe. They had prayed for saviors, and they had received beings who seemed almost immortal in their courage. But even as the humans helped, the Halari began to feel the weight of the bond forming. These beings had fought and suffered for them, yet they asked nothing in return. How could a species endure such hardship and still act with compassion? The answer became clear over the next few days. The humans were not perfect. They were scarred, they were tired, and they carried the memory of their own brutal world. But from that hardship, they had learned something the Halari had never known. That strength and mercy could exist together, that survival did not have to mean cruelty, and that protecting others was a choice, not a command. Families emerged from hiding, timidly at first, then with growing confidence. Children held hands with the soldiers, laughing despite the ruins around them. Parents offered food and water. The Halari began to clean the rubble from their homes, guided by the humans' instructions. Slowly life returned, fragile but determined, and through it all the humans moved with a constant awareness. Always watching, always protecting, always ready for the next threat. One night, as the Halari gathered to offer thanks, a young human medic sat among them, bandaging a small child's arm. The Halari child looked up at her and whispered, "Will you stay with us?" The medic smiled faintly, exhaustion heavy in her eyes. "We will stay as long as you need us," she said. "We will not leave until you are safe." The words carried a power the Halari could barely comprehend. Loyalty forged not by law, not by threat, but by choice. As days passed, the Halari began to share their stories with the humans. They spoke of their families, their traditions, and their dreams. The humans listened patiently, asking questions and offering reassurance. And with every shared story, the Halari felt a sense of connection that went beyond gratitude. These Deathworlders had come from a harsh universe, yet they chose to stand among them, to fight for them, to protect them. The Halari realized that they had been given more than survival. They had been given guardians, teachers, and friends. The Dominion had been driven away, their threat diminished, but the humans did not linger in victory. They treated the Halari not as subjects, not as pets, but as equals. They taught them how to rebuild safely, how to defend themselves if needed, and how to survive in a universe that was often cruel. The Halari, once fragile and afraid, began to see a future they had thought impossible. And as the sun set over the ruined but still standing cities, the Halari understood the full measure of the human's gift. It was not just protection. It was courage, compassion, and the promise that no one need face the dark alone. These Deathworlders had risked their lives, endured suffering, and shown mercy beyond measure. And in doing so, they had rewritten the Halari's understanding of what it meant to be alive. For the first time in generations, the Halari believed in the galaxy again. They had called to the stars, not knowing who would answer. What arrived were not perfect heroes, not gods, but something far stronger, humans. Survivors of death worlds, bearers of strength and mercy, and the ones who had chosen to stand with them when all others had turned away. In the quiet night, the Halari whispered their thanks to the stars, their hearts heavy with emotion and full of awe. They had been saved not by fate, not by luck, but by humanity itself, and they knew that their lives and their world would never be the same again. The Dominion had retreated, limping through the stars, defeated but not yet destroyed. Halari skies cleared, though smoke still curled from the ruins of cities and forests. The humans remained, walking among the survivors, tending wounds, rebuilding shelters, and offering guidance. To the Halari, they were no longer just saviors. They were legends made flesh, beings who had come from a distant, hostile world to protect a species they had never met. The Halari elders gathered in the central square of the capital, surrounded by humans who had fought tirelessly for them. Tears streaked their faces as they looked upon the survivors, humans scarred, exhausted, yet unbowed. One elder spoke, voice trembling but strong. "We called to the stars, not knowing who would answer. And what came were humans, Deathworlders, protectors, friends." The crowd murmured agreement, their hearts full of awe. Children peeked out from behind ruins, wide-eyed and whispering the name humans had come to be called. Deathworlders. Humans, in their simple honesty, did not seek praise. They cleaned, repaired, and instructed the Halari on how to defend themselves, all without expecting thanks. Yet in the eyes of the Halari, every gesture of help, every act of courage became a story that would be told for generations. Mothers whispered to their children about the humans who had fought through fire, not for glory, but because it was the right thing to do. Fathers told tales of the soldiers who had risked everything to save strangers, showing that strength and compassion could exist together. For the humans themselves, the work was relentless but familiar. They were born of worlds where danger was constant, where survival demanded endurance and courage. To them, helping the Halari was not remarkable. It was what they had been trained to do by hardship, instinct, and a simple, unshakable code: stand when others cannot. Yet in every glance they exchanged with the Halari, they saw gratitude and wonder, emotions they did not often receive even on their own world. Over time, the Halari began to rebuild with the humans' guidance. Crumbled walls were repaired, burned forests replanted, and villages reorganized with safety and foresight. Children learned from the humans how to recognize danger, to move without fear, and to trust in courage. Adults learned discipline, resilience, and the strange, compelling idea that strength could be used not for conquest, but for protection. The Halari had survived the Dominion, yes, but they were becoming something more. They were learning to endure, to fight, and to value life in ways they had never imagined. Yet not all humans stayed. Some returned to their ships, ready to move to the next cry for help across the galaxy. But their presence left a mark. In every healed wound, in every rebuilt home, and in every safe child's smile, the human's legacy endured. The Halari began to understand that this was not just about survival. It was about the choice to stand with those who needed you most, even at great personal cost. One evening, as the sun set over the capital, a young Halari child ran to a group of human soldiers. Holding a broken toy she had thought lost forever, she handed it to one of the humans, smiling shyly. The soldier knelt, taking the toy in his hands, and for a moment his hardened face softened. "Thank you," he said simply, though he had given far more than he could ever receive. The child laughed, and the elders watching quietly realized that this small act symbolized everything. The bond between their species and humanity was no longer one of fear or dependence, but of respect, trust, and hope. The Halari began to send messages beyond their system, recounting what had happened, warning others of the Dominion, and sharing the story of humans who had answered when no one else would. Across the galaxy, whispers of these Deathworlders spread, tales of a species that endured unimaginable hardship, yet chose to protect rather than dominate. The story grew in awe and inspiration. Humanity was not just a survivor of a hostile world. They were a guardian, a force that refused to ignore cries for help, no matter the danger. Years later, when the Halari looked up at the stars, they no longer felt the cold silence of the galaxy. They saw lights moving in distant systems, remembering the humans who had come for them. The Dominion remained a threat in parts of space, but the fear that had once gripped their hearts had been replaced by confidence and pride. They were alive, they were learning, and they had allies whose courage and compassion would echo through time. The elders spoke to the children one final time before the humans departed for other worlds. "Remember this," one said. "We asked the stars for help, not knowing who would answer. And the answer that came changed everything. Remember the humans, the Deathworlders. They are proof that even in the darkest moments, someone will stand for what is right. They showed us that courage, mercy, and hope can exist together, and that even the smallest voice can be heard if the heart dares to call." As the human ships lifted into the sky, the Halari waved, hearts full, eyes shining, and spirits renewed. The galaxy was vast but no longer lonely. Somewhere out there, humanity moved through the stars, answering the cries of those who would otherwise be forgotten. They were not angels, not gods, but something far stronger: survivors, protectors, and a promise that no one need face darkness alone. And in that moment, the Halari knew the truth. When humanity answers a call, it is not mercy alone. They bring courage, fire, and a legacy that will never be forgotten. Across the ruined world and the star-strewn sky, one thought echoed in every heart: we are never alone. Deathworlder humans are here. The days after the message felt like an eternity for the Halari. Their world was broken, their people scattered, but still they waited. Every hour, survivors listened to the faint hum of the old receivers, praying for a sound, a word, anything that would mean they were not alone. The Dominion did not wait. Their warships circled the skies like predators, and their soldiers spread across the surface. Entire villages were enslaved. Anyone who resisted was executed. Families were torn apart, children dragged away from their parents, and hope grew weaker with every passing sunrise. The Halari were beginning to believe the truth the Dominion commander had promised them. No one is coming. You are forgotten. But then, one quiet night, everything changed. Deep within a hidden bunker, a group of Halari technicians sat before the receivers. Their eyes were tired, their faces gray with despair. They had heard nothing for so long. Suddenly, the machine crackled to life. Static filled the chamber, rough and uneven. At first, they thought it was just noise, but then a sound broke through, low, deep, and unlike any voice they had ever heard. The message was short. Only a few words, but it struck like thunder in their hearts. Message received. Hold on, help is coming. The technicians froze. One of them trembled as tears filled his eyes. Someone heard us, he whispered. They replayed the message again and again, making sure it was real. The voice was strange, heavy, almost frightening. It did not sound like any species they knew, but it carried something more powerful than music or beauty. It carried certainty. Whoever had sent it was not asking questions, not negotiating, not even hesitating. It was a promise. When the news spread through the surviving Halari camps, emotions erupted like a storm. Some shouted with joy, hugging each other, finally daring to hope. Others were cautious, whispering in fear. Who are they? What if they are worse than the Dominion? What if we have called monsters to our world? The elders did not know what to say. The galaxy was full of dangerous species, some even crueler than the Dominion. What if this mysterious voice belonged to them? And yet the message repeated every few hours, always the same. Message received. Hold on. Help is coming. The young Halari clung to those words as if they were light in the darkness. Children repeated them to each other as if saying it enough times would make it true. In the caves where families hid, mothers soothed their little ones by whispering the phrase like a lullaby. For the first time in many weeks, there was hope. The Dominion, however, soon detected the unusual signals. The commander laughed when his officers reported it. So someone has answered? Good, let them come. We will show them what happens when fools interfere with the Dominion. He spread his fleets wider, preparing for any arrivals. He was confident, arrogant, certain that no force could rival his empire's strength. But among the Halari, the unknown voice continued to stir emotions. Some of the elders argued that they should stop sending their signal, afraid of angering the Dominion further. Others argued the opposite, saying they must strengthen the connection, guide whoever had answered straight to them. The debate grew heated, but in the end, desperation won. The Halari had no choice but to cling to the promise of strangers. More time passed. The Halari scanned the skies each night, looking for a change in the stars. Children drew pictures on cave walls of mighty protectors arriving in great ships. The adults tried to believe, though doubt gnawed at them quietly. What if it was only a trick? What if the voice does not mean what we think? But then small signs appeared. The Dominion sensors began to pick up movements far from the system. Unknown ships approaching, though their number was small. Dominion officers reported unusual energy signatures, crude and powerful, unlike the smooth designs of most galactic fleets. The commander dismissed them at first, calling them scavengers or pirates. Yet in the camps, whispers began. They are coming. One night, as the Halari huddled together in fear and hope, the voice came again through the receivers. This time it was longer, clearer. We hear your call. Do not lose hope. We are on our way. The Halari wept openly. They did not know who these beings were or what they looked like. They did not know what kind of warriors would dare to challenge the Dominion. But they knew one thing. For the first time, someone had chosen to stand with them. The Dominion mocked them, calling their hope foolish. But hope had already begun to spread like fire. The Halari no longer felt completely abandoned. They repeated the words over and over as if they were a shield against despair. Help is coming. And above them, unseen in the darkness of space, ships were moving closer. They were not graceful like the vessels of the great empires. They were heavy, scarred, built for survival rather than beauty. To most of the galaxy, they were a nightmare. But to the Halari, though they did not yet know it, these strange newcomers would become something greater. They had called out to the stars, not knowing who would answer. Now someone had. And soon the galaxy would learn a truth it had long ignored. When humans hear a cry for help, they do not stay silent. They come.